the other night I was sat on this very beach watching the sunset after a morning of training, an afternoon of work, and I was eating this beautiful Italian deli sandwich, and I was with one of my very successful entrepreneur friends. We're having a lot of conversations, as friends do, and we were putting the world to right. There was one thing that really stood out for me in that conversation that me and him have subconsciously been doing for years. And in that conversation, we self-diagnosed it to be one of the main determining factors to what holds a lot of people back from getting what they want out of life in whatever domain that may be. Health, wealth, happiness, relationships, fitness, or just simply wanting a better quality of life. And most of the time we have all the answers, we've watched all the how-tos, we know the exact steps we need to take in order to get there. And there's countless individuals we can follow in the footsteps of, because 99% of the time, whatever you're trying to do, someone has already done it. It's already been achieved. So on paper, achieving that thing shouldn't be that hard. Yet you still deem it very unattainable. And despite how hard you try, a lot of people don't make it happen. So in this video, I want to bridge that gap for you. I want to show you what really makes the difference between those that do make it and those that don't. I know this isn't another how-to video. You've seen enough of those. This is a theory, and it's a theory that you can apply to pretty much anything you're trying to achieve in life. And if you apply it in the right way, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to have a much higher success rate. And it's very simple. It's to focus on the why and not to focus on the how. Let me cool off and I'm going to explain. Let's get to work. Alright, so I want to explain this theory of why you should focus on the why instead of focusing on the how. And the example I'll give is, if you think about it like a chef, right? If you look at a fast food worker, someone that works at McDonald's, works in Burger King, wherever, and you look at the Michelin star chef, what's the key difference? Well, the fast food worker is simply just like following a recipe. They're following the same repeatable process as to why, the food they're making, or the burgers they're making, or the fries they're making taste the way they do. They just follow the same repeatable process. And it's relatively easy, right? That's why they don't get paid a huge amount of money. Whereas if you compare it to like the Michelin star chef, the world famous chefs that everyone knows and everyone loves, and there's massive wait lists to their restaurants, these guys have built up their reputation and they built up their kind of skill set in trying to understand like why food tastes good. Why mixing that thing with that thing. And I'm not a chef, I'm not great at cooking, I can chop mango and that's pretty much about it. But I hope this analogy hits. It's like they understand what makes food taste good, right? They understand what needs to go into it, what flavors they can mix together, how to present it, to actually then charge people a lot of money for it. Whereas the fast food worker simply needs to follow a recipe, and following the recipe really is like the how, right? And then knowing how to make good food is the why. And that's why you get paid a lot more if you are a good cook or a good chef. And I can link this to my own example, right? It's like when I first started out in this online business space and when I first started my own marketing agency, I simply bought a course, very much like a fast food worker. I took that course as gospel and I followed it to the T. I followed the instructions, I followed the how, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get results from this. But I didn't, and it took me a very long time. And I remember, and I can give very specific examples of this, I remember going into in-person meetings where I was wearing my sixth form suit that didn't fit me anymore, and I was going into dental practices to try and sell them on marketing services. And I had memorized this sales script in my head, and I knew, okay, like I'm gonna deliver them, I'm gonna get them more clients. And I understood the how, but I didn't understand the why as to why that would impact their business and why that was important. And ultimately, when I went and did the selling, and I followed that sales script, I knew how to run the sales script, I knew how to run the sales interaction, but I didn't understand the why. I didn't understand why I was saying what I was saying, to what effect, what impact would that have. So it didn't land. I didn't make any money, right? For a good year and a half, and a lot of meetings are just, nothing came from it because all I was focused on was the how. And the how, if it was very much down to just understanding the how, anyone would do it. But of course, many people don't. And the reason is because the why is more important. Once you start understanding the why and why you do things and why things work and why things don't, you'll be so much more effective and you'll get way better results. And so understanding this why is much more important than the how, right? But in order to do this effectively, in order to implement this theory, you need to focus on two main things. And those two main things are micro and macro. And these are both whys. And if you're unfamiliar with what micro and macro means, I'm going to eat this fruit and run a few team meetings, and then I'm going to run you through it. So in simple terms, macro means big and micro means small. And I'll get into this, but it's something I go over with my team, and I've just gone over with my team today. And it's one of the biggest needle movers in terms of actually getting results. And it all starts with this idea of macro why. So macro is just like the big picture, all encompassing, it's everything. It's you as an individual, your environment, and your whole internal ecosystem. And your macro why is essentially like why you're doing what you're doing as a whole. Like, what is the end goal? What is the end why? And just to give you some context to all this and be vulnerable, I suppose, with you guys, and I don't mean this to brag by any means, but I've built multiple 7-figure businesses and I'm a millionaire, right? Yet I still work 6 days a week. And I spend more time at this desk than probably my girlfriend would like. But the reason I do that is because in my head, I have this idea, I have this big picture goal, and it's a financial number that I want to hit. And I have that financial goal in mind so that when I hit that financial number, I will know my family will be secure forever. I can, get married to my girlfriend. I can buy the big house in the English countryside. I can have 3 kids. I can send them to amazing schools. And we have this financial security for the rest of our lives where I know they are taken care of and I can spend as much time as I want with them and I can choose to work as little or as much as I'd like. And if I'm being real, I'll probably continue to work as much as I do now, although it'd be working in a different vein. It won't be coming from a need to create that financial security. That's financial security is there. I will then be working out of this place of financial abundance and I know that everything's taken care of and whatever I do, I can take bigger risks in business. I can shoot for the 100 million. And if things don't go to plan, that's okay because I know, this financial nest egg has got my family secure. And I know that I gave everything in my 20s to making sure that that life is set up for them, right? And that's a big reason why I do what I do. I want to be able to look at my wife, look at my kids, put them to bed and know that they're extremely proud that I've built this comfortable life for them that means they're financially secure and money's not even a question. And look, I won't go super deep on it, but that is my why. That is my macro why. That is why I work. That is why I do everything I do every single day, because I have this big picture idea of what I'm working on and what I'm working towards. And that ultimately fuels the activities I do every single day. If I can show you this. I literally have a photo of me as a child up on my wall right in front of my desk that I'm able to look at every single day. And I'm doing it for that guy. I'm doing it for that guy because, yeah, that's not my kid, but I imagine he probably looked pretty similar to that. And that's why I do this, right? That's why I work. And, that might not be your why, right? That might not be important to you. Family, having that financial security, it might not be. It could be totally different and that's okay. You might want to take over the world. You might want to be a billionaire and you might want to rival Elon Musk and take crazy, crazy risks and invest all your money again when you get a fat payout from PayPal, go and invest half into Tesla and half into SpaceX and live in a caravan for another 6 months to try and have this world dominance, right? But that doesn't really excite me. That doesn't really align with what I really want. So I don't work out of that frame and I don't really think about things like that. I have my own why and my own reasons for doing what I'm doing. And ultimately, you need to have those reasons too, right? And I can compare this to when I first started out in this whole online space, this whole entrepreneurial journey, right? My goal was 10K a month and I didn't really know why. I was that guy in that sixth form suit that didn't fit him, going to these meetings with the idea of I want to make 10K a month because ultimately that's what everyone was selling me online. That was everyone was telling me, 10K a month, you can live comfy, you can be happy, everything's going to be sorted forever. And all I really thought about was like, yeah, 10K a month, that sounds pretty good. At the time, I really wanted a Porsche. And I was like, I can buy a Porsche on 10K a month. I can finance that. That'd be good. I'll aim for that. But this lack of direction and lack of kind of that macro why and not really thinking about it kind of meant I was directionless, And that's one of the reasons I didn't hit that goal for a very long time. I didn't hit the 10K a month. It was only when I got clear on the macro why was I then able to hit that number. And that's really the most important thing here is getting super clear on that first, above all else. Like, why do you want to hit that financial goal, whatever that may be?
Why do you want more money? What even is the reason for that? What's that going to do for you? How would your life actually change? And I'm not talking about materialistic things. Like maybe you do want a Porsche, maybe you do want to buy watches, but like ultimately, like why? What's the feeling you're attributing to that? What does that actually mean to you? Why those specific numbers? Like, have you actually really broken it down and understood it and understood what those numbers can mean to you? And I'm talking in financial terms here, but this could apply to anything you're trying to do. You know, whether it's fitness, health, relationships, finding a girlfriend, whatever it is, you need to have that understanding of your bigger picture why and why that is so important to you before you even try and attempt it. Because only if you have that big picture and you're clear on it and you remind yourself of it every single day, like something like this, you'll only then be able to operate at a much higher frequency and with much more fire and much more consistency in order to actually hit those goals. And that's why the next bit is so important, understanding the micro, which I'm going to come on to this afternoon with you guys once I've done a bit more work. But really having a clear picture of that macro why is the most important thing, guys. And I can't stress that enough. And I see it time and time again where people are just working aimlessly, but they know the how. They know that, you know, whatever they want to do, getting into sales, starting an agency, starting their own business is the how, but they don't understand the why. And that's what leaves them lost, and that's what leaves them stuck. So get clear on that. Then let's go into the micro.
I show my love for you. Then say I do, I do, I do. I do, I do, I do.
All right, so I just wrapped up my second workout here. So I went through my calls, did some work, and now I want to speak to you around the micro. And the micro is basically all the inputs that go into making that macro why actually happen. So it's all the stuff that you're doing every single day to actually fuel that macro why. And I'm talking like what you do in your work, how you work, why you work in such a way, and you know, why are you doing that one specific thing in that specific way? Like to what effect, right? Because it's all well and good knowing, you know, how you work and how to do specific things, but you can't tap into that deeper level of understanding without knowing the why. You know, why is it actually effective? And why does that even make a significant impact? And just to give you some context here as to why I'm filming this after my second workout of the day, which, yeah, sure, sounds like a lot, but I'm currently training to compete in a second Ironman 70.3. And I've been training all year up until this point. I've been doing sort of 10 to 13 hour weeks of training every single week throughout this year to prepare myself for this. Now, why am I doing that, right? Well, I frankly love to push myself, you know, both physically and mentally. Like it really fulfills me. And I know if I feel like I'm getting better at something and I'm working towards something, that fulfills me. That makes me feel good. And if I can mentally push myself outside of my work and something that isn't, you know, got a monetary gain to it or whatever, and I'm pushing myself in certain areas, such as with physically, like something like this, I know that it toughens me up. I know that it toughens up my mindset, my mental resilience improves, and my stamina as well. Like I'm able to take on and handle more stress, whether that be with training and exercise. Is often like this morning's workout was intervals, for example. That's a, you know, high heart rate training. This training is necessarily not so hard. It's lower impact, but I know overall it's making me better. It's making me more mentally resilient. It's giving me more, it's stress testing me in a way, right? And I know if I can stress test myself and I can push myself physically, that's going to massively improve my ability to translate that into my work and be able to handle more stress in my work and to mentally toughen up my mindset and my work too. Like, and the two for me really do go hand in hand. Like whenever I'm training for an event, it always reflects well on my work. And yeah, sure, there might be the flip side that I'm a bit more tired, but I attack my desk in the morning with a different level of attitude once I know I've done a hard workout and once I know I'm training hard. And I'm not just training or doing these things because people say that you should. People say you should run marathons and you should go to the gym and you should exercise because it's good for you. Like, I understand how it deeply affects me and to what effect it has on my bigger kind of macro why, right? It's a micro thing. It's not even linked to my work, yet it affects my work, and that's why I do it. And I truly understand the why as to how it personally benefits me. And I'm not here to sort of throw heat at anyone, but you've seen those guys that have been going to the gym. Maybe you're one of them. You know, you've been going to the gym for years. You do the same workouts. Monday's chest day, Tuesday's back day, Wednesday's leg day or rest day, and you might skip it. And you've been doing it time and time again. You do the same thing. You lift the same weights, and you're not really seeing any progression. And it's simply just because, you know, these guys are just going through the motions of doing these things without really thinking about the bigger picture, without having that macro why clear. But even in their micro actions and the things they're doing every day, they're not really thinking what the benefit is or why they're even doing it in the first place. And therefore they make zero progress, right? They're not intentional with their actions. They're not intentional with the things they do day to day that is ultimately going to get them to where they want to go in the bigger picture, in that macro. Now, what I want to do, I want to clean up and I want to go into this in a bit more detail. So let me get off this bike and I'll explain it in business terms a bit more. So again, I can link this to my own personal experience, right? I mean, if you think about that same example I gave at the start of this video, where I was talking about myself when I first started the business and going into these in-person meetings in that very tight suit and trying to run these sales processes on these dental clients, right? You know, I firstly went in without a clear understanding of what my macro why was. So that was my first problem. But then I didn't really understand the micro either, right? I'd memorized this sales script. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew how to say it, but I didn't really understand the why behind it. You know, why did I need to go through the discovery in the first place? Like, what was the effect of that? What was the point of going into someone's current situation and gaining that understanding of like where their business is currently at? What's the point? You know, to what effect does that have, and how am I actually going to use that later on in the sales process? I didn't have a clear understanding. I just knew, let me follow the script, let me see where it goes. And because I thought I knew the how, I thought I'd get the result. But because I didn't know the why, it caused me massive problems, and that's probably why I didn't close anyone for a very long time. And I can really speak from experience from coaching over 600 sales reps at this point on this same thing. Is like, and it's just one example, but it translates into all areas of your life, is you can get given a sales script and you can understand what is on it and you can understand kind of the how to run through it and what to say. But if you don't truly understand why you're saying it and what the point of it is, you'll never get the same results than if you truly have that deeper understanding of why. And that's kind of where it's like, all right, let's just take, you know, an arbitrary number, 10K a month. A sales rep wants to make 10K a month. And they think, okay, well, the how is that I need to get better at sales and I need to land a good offer. And that's kind of the micro hows, but then obviously there's micros within these micros where it's like, well, how are you actually getting better at sales? Well, I need to learn the sales script. Sure, but then do you actually understand the micro why behind that? What each part of that sales process actually does and to what effect and to what reason? Like when we go on and handle objections, it's like, here's the playbook. Here's what you should say when the prospect gives you the price objection. But it's like, well, deep down psychologically, like, why are you saying those things? What are you really trying to get out of the prospect? To what effect? And I've done this. I've asked multiple sales reps when they say, hey, I tried this and it didn't work. I go, okay. I go, okay, well, why did you say that? What were you trying to do? What were you trying to achieve? And if they can't answer it, I know what their issue is. They don't have that clear understanding of that micro why. Really, the point of this whole entire video is quite simple. It's like, if you really want to get great at anything and you want to achieve great things at anything you do, you really need to get a clear understanding of the why, right? On that macro level, on that bigger picture, what exactly is it that you want? What do you want to achieve? And then also on the micro level, what are you doing day to day? How are those actions actually playing into that? Not necessarily just focusing on the how, but focusing on the why, like to what effect. And I want to give you a very tangible example of how you can action this going forward, even when things don't work out. Let me quickly clean up here and I'm going to jump to my iPad. So first and foremost, get super clear on your macro why. What is that? And keep asking yourself, if it's 10K a month, why? Why do you want it? If it's 6-pack, why? Why do you want that? What's the reason? What's the deeper meaning to you actually having that? Is it gonna allow you to move countries for whatever reason? Well, why do you want to move countries? You know, I want to live in Bali. Well, why do you want to live in Bali? What's the reason for that? Well, I want to be close to the sea. I want to live in more alignment with nature. Whatever it is, right? And it's because you're unhappy with living in a concrete jungle. Whatever. You want a 6-pack because you want to impress the girls. Whatever reason it is, that probably comes down to deeper insecurities around yourself, or whatever, right? You've got to have this clear picture of what that macro why is, and you really want to take the time to understand it. And then within that, you've got all these micros. And these micros are everything you do day to day, right? And you've got to be super, super aware of the why within these, right? Why are you doing all of these things day to day? What effect is it having? And look, I'll be real with you. Just because you operate like this and you start having this higher level of self-awareness, it doesn't necessarily mean things are going to work out, right? You're still going to have setbacks. Things aren't going to go to plan, right? And if they do go to plan, great. You should take the time to realize and really think and ask that question, why? Why did that work? What did I do that actually made that happen? Not the how, but the why. Why did that take effect? But if it doesn't go to plan, as oftentimes it will, you still want to think, well, why didn't it work? What went wrong? What was the issue? It always has to link back to why, and you want to operate in this frame at all times, and the more you can do it and the more self-aware you'll be, the easier getting your goals becomes, the easier it becomes, more attainable. Firstly, because you're operating from that macro why at all times, you always have what you want out of your life, out of your future, top of mind. You're always thinking about it. But then day to day, you're operating out of this micro and you're really thinking around all these individual things you're doing that play into that bigger picture of the macro why. So I hope this helped. I hope this helped one person. If it did, drop me a subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.